So this is why boundaries are important. You and I are about to play a game, okay? It's a really important game, so pay attention. You ready? Okay, you go first. Exactly. You're sitting there and you're saying, wait, what? What are the rules of the game? I go first, what do I do? You don't know. You don't know the rules of the game. Rules are how you learn to play. Play is everything we do. We call it work, we call it love, we call it relationships, we call it hobbies. It's all play, it's all exploration, and it all has rules. And society has rules. Well, hello and a warm welcome to today's video. Dr Syl here, junior doctor from Australia, and today we're reacting to a video titled Aggressive Child, the 1960s Psychiatric Case Study from the channel Psychedelics. It's got almost 3 million views, and it's the footage about an aggressive child. Now, I feel like I have to disclaim early in this video that I do not have children, and having nieces and nephews doesn't count in terms of the understanding the experience of parenthood. So I'm not going to be discussing this case from an experiential point of view. I don't know what it's like to have that enduring, never relenting, ongoing need to care and deep mix of love and hate towards this thing that you would die for. You know, I haven't had that personal experience, but I've worked with a lot of parents and a lot of children, and so we'll share what a perspective of a clinical perspective. And you know, this video's got millions of views and no one's kind of reacted or assessed it, so thought it would be useful to do. So let's get into it.
He's an intelligent child and a very attractive one. But Philippe is a problem. At school, at home, to himself. Philippe is an overly aggressive child. What can be done? We can say, oh, this is just a phase, he'll outgrow it. Or we can recognize that he needs help and that something can be done to help him. This is the supervisor of his nursery school, Miss Steinberg.
He tried to choke a little boy because this little boy wanted to play with a little girl that he was particularly interested in. He's inclined to reject any authority or limits set for him by the teacher. And it became so bad, even to the extent of hitting the teacher, that we had to ask the mother to come in to see us. And we recommended that she goes to the Children's Hospital for help.
This is Dr. Hyman Kaplan.
Your mommy is worried because you used to do so much fighting at school. And she'd like to know how we could teach you not to fight so much. Do you have any ideas?
No.
Would you like to learn how
Yeah.
not to fight? Well, do you think fighting is the best way to do things?
Yeah.
And you don't feel you know any other way?
No.
This is Philippe's.
So a couple of observations to start with. The first is the kind of sorry, I just find it striking that you have a teacher smoking inside. That's really a sign of the times, isn't it? In the 60s, everyone was just smoking all over the place. So I feel like doctors were smoking inside, teachers were smoking inside around children. It was a sign of the times. The commentary around, it sounds like there's a lot of aggression whenever he's having any sense of abandonment. So when his friend that he wants to play with is separating from him and leaving him, that makes him aggressive. And I guess I wanted to comment on the quality of the interview technique already, and that is that children are really good at engaging in reviews and conversations whilst playing and fidgeting with their fingers and hands. They're really good at multitasking in that way. So it's often better to have them have something to do while you're talking to them, because it can be extremely uncomfortable to talk to a stranger without having something to kind of fidget with your hands. So I haven't felt the level of, I think actually not having toys would lead to a worse review, even though that's kind of paradoxical because you think you'd want them to focus on just talking. It actually just allows them to kind of ventilate some of the anxious energy by fidgeting and drawing and playing with toys. The other thing is that the doctor came down to Philippe's level, which is really important with all children, especially children that have issues with oppositional defiance, which is what we're kind of hearing now, like it doesn't follow instructions, and there's some aggression, having scary big authority figures which just induce fight and flight responses in children, and then they can't focus and they can't hear and can't learn. Doesn't really help. So you need to kind of get on their level, have that soft voice, and gather information that way. This is really the kind of core of play therapy, where you're using play as a kind of modality to understand the child's inner world, because that's how children learn about the world and explore the world, is through play.
Mother.
He's terribly disobedient. A child has to know and has to respect authority from a teacher or from a parent. I feel somewhere along the line I failed. He's a child that has really everything a child would want. And it's really quite disheartening. There's something that it just makes one feel like a failure.
The doctors will spend time with Philippe and with Philippe's mother. It's more useful if both parents come, since both are a part of the problem. But even if only one will come, this can alter the home situation, which contributes to Philippe's problem.
So I want to echo this as well. First of all, there is an underrepresentation of dads in psychiatric reviews. It is definitely the case that that both parents don't attend psychiatric reviews on average. So it's really, when a child has an issue, it's commonly a result of a systems issue, and the systems is the term we use for family. So there's a family problem and this child is the symptom. The good news is that if people change in the family and things get adjusted, then the child will get better. But you need the family to all have buy-in and be present, and sometimes that isn't the case. So you have to work with what you've got sometimes. I guess the commentary around what Mum was saying is, when I hear a parent saying, like, my child has everything a child could want, often they're talking about practical things like food, shelter, water, toys, that kind of thing. But actually what a child needs is emotional closeness, that they need to be delighted in by a parent and to have I guess the term is being with. They need presence of a parent and emotional support. In fact, I'm going to take a quick tangent here to draw something out called the circle of security, which is used all the time in child and adolescent psychiatry and in perinatal psychiatry. So at the core of a child's mental health is their attachment to their parents, right? When a child is born, they are born completely helpless and dependent on their caregivers. Compared to other animals, we are born incredibly premature. A giraffe and a horse, they can walk within seconds of being born. For us, it takes a year. Our brains are underdeveloped. We're just fully dependent on our caregivers. And the kind of the concept of that dependence is what informs attachment theory, and attachment theory is a kind of widely accepted approach to understanding behaviors in children and their relationship with caregivers. And I'm going to show you the circle of security, which is at the core of attachment theory. So a parent is over here on the left, okay? A parent represents the safe base where a child can go when they are under stress and needs to feel like they are getting settled. So you can imagine that if a parent is under a lot of duress, has a substance use disorder, or severe anxiety, or can't sit still with a child, has a panic disorder, for example, that the safe base can be compromised. But in the ideal world, the parent, oh my gosh, I'm going to try and draw some hands. Okay, let's see how these hands go. Ooh, not too bad. They're not perfect. The hands are meant to be like this. Okay, they're meant to be like, I'm going to come and hold you. You can come into my hands when you want. Okay, and then, so that's the safe base. Safe base. Okay, so on one side you've got the safe base, and on the other side I'm just going to draw the world. This is what the child explores. Okay, so the world, let's just draw Australia. I just realised that I'm not going to be very good at drawing all the different countries. There's Asia and the Pacific and America. Okay. Okay, that's... I didn't really practice this before doing it, but the point is that's the world. That's what children go out to explore. And essentially, we all do this still to this day. This is part of humanity. It's the experience of individuating. Okay, it's going out to explore the world, to test, and you see this as early as a child can crawl, because they start crawling away from the parent. That's the start of separation. Then they start playing, they start meeting other friends, they start getting hobbies, they start going for walks, going to school, playing, and getting So that's the exploration phase. Okay, but what is going to happen in normal development is that there's going to be stresses when you explore the world. And so when a child undergoes stress, how do they cope with it? They have to come back to the safe space, the safe base. Okay? And this is the circle of security. And the job of a parent is to act as the safe base when the child comes back, and but also set boundaries, because if you let them have too much experience exploring the world, like if you're too permissive and let them do whatever they want, they'll take risks because they don't have a frontal lobe to understand risks, and they could end up hurt, or they don't understand rules of society, and then they can become really socially maladaptive. So it's important for children to have boundaries and to have rules, and to to an extent have some boundaries. Now, if to a child the world is too scary, like if this world, instead of the earth, if the world feels too scary, it feels like a fire like this, then they're not going to want to explore much, and they'll kind of want to stay close to the safe base. And you can imagine this is the case in when there's some anxiety disorders like separation anxiety. And there's temperamental, genetic, and social factors that play into these kind of different situations. But you can also imagine that if the safe base isn't safe, if the parents, haven't mentioned, if there's issues in the parents acting as a safe base, so it could be a major mental illness, it could be substance use, it could be aggression, domestic violence, then actually they're not going to feel safe at home, and they're going to stay kind of away from the safe base, which might be dissociation if they can't physically escape, but it also could be substance use, right? Like they'll replace the safe base of a parent with the safe base of a substance. Because what does a substance do for young people, right? It provides a dependable, positive, euphoric, usually, experience. That's that can be a common factor in the development of some addictions. But the other thing that can happen if the safe base is not safe is aggression. Right, they can get oppositional defiance and conduct disorder. They can get really nasty and aggressive because if it's not safe to be with it, then that generates anxiety, and anxiety can become anger, and that anger can get directed outwards or inwards. So getting directed outwards is conduct disorder. That's anger. That's aggression. That's oppositional defiance. When really what they're wanting is a hug. What they're doing is a punch. Okay, I think I've had that rant for long enough. Let's crack on.
And would that help the pussycat learn how to do better at school?
Yes, because they'll remember it.
They'll remember it.
And if they're bad at school, I get them a wham wham.
A wham wham. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because you've had whippings and you've had punishments, and has that helped you learn to enjoy school a lot better?
No.
Then wham wham.
You got in your head.
Wham wham doesn't always help. I don't have a whip in my hands. Is that what you were looking for? I just have hands that I can sort of get close to you with and love you.
You love me?
And be friendly to you. Yes, I love you because I'm a doctor that's trying to help you. And I'm trying to help you by trying to find out how I can help you enjoy your school without fighting all the other kids so much, because there must be a good reason why you fight all those kids. On the one hand, you say...
So that was a really interesting interaction. The child's natural response to how to change behavior is violence, and comes from I guess, what was revealed, his experience of being beaten when corporal punishment was really common in the 60s. And the doctor does a really good job of, kind of being like, well, it doesn't make sense to me, because if it didn't work for you, why would it work for the cat? That's brilliant. Like, that's something I'm going to learn to try and use. Like, use your own example as a way of trying to generate insight. It's very hard to have a child at that age develop insight into right and wrong. The comment around saying the doctor loves the child, I've never seen a doctor say that to a child. It's interesting, but that's a bit of a boundary breach, in my opinion. But anyway, what was really interesting is that the child just lit up, right? The child wants to be loved. And you can imagine how vulnerable that makes a child if they're kind of feeling emotionally depraved, how they would seek, that kind of connection, and how that could be they could get that connection from someone who's not as, from a bad actor, from a bad person. And you can think about how people get involved in gangs and substance use and all that sort of stuff. If they're not getting the emotional needs met from caregivers, they'll find it somewhere else. So that safe base might change from being a parent to someone else, like a older person. And anyway, it's just important to have a good safe base.
He's got everything he wants, and then you say, somehow I feel he's missing something, and more than that, you say, you feel you're the one that's making this missing occur.
Well, he's missing, obviously, child companionship. I mean, obviously, without the lack of other children, it's not a wonderfully happy home. He's such a difficult child anyway to handle that I just couldn't take another. Wouldn't want another child.
Who do you think's the most important person in his life?
I would say I am.
You are.
Would say so. I'm imagine so.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with that. Now, children don't learn things by being born with a machinery for knowing things.
No.
They have to be trained and developed. A good teacher, a good mother is a person who gives goodies, love, and affection, and tenderness, and gratification, but who in crucial situations can say no. How good a teacher are you, particularly when your child doesn't want to listen to you?
He gets punished, and that's all there is to it.
Well, then you become a punitive teacher.
If he's very rude, he goes to bed and he's punished. And it doesn't matter to him if he doesn't watch the television. He just goes over my knee with a slipper and he goes to his room. Doesn't always work.
Well, after you've given him a beating, do you feel he's learned something?
No.
Do you feel you've learned something?
No. No.
Well, how angry are you when all this happens?
Well, I am inclined to be, highly strung, to say the least. But I try desperately to handle the situation as calmly as one can.
You mean you don't think you should be angry?
I shouldn't show my anger.
Why not?
Well,
it seems to me, though, that you're trying very hard to teach him, but you're also trying very hard not to teach him. Because when you're angry, you're entitled to be angry. If you're putting a lid on that, is it also possible that you're curbing a lot of the love you might give him? Because if one learns to put a lid on feelings, it's very hard to open up the lid for feeling A, but close it for feeling B.
But the thing is, I find that when I raise my voice to him, he raises his voice back. My husband is inclined to give in much easier than I. When I say something, I mean it. That if I'm going to persist and persist and persist, and the next minute my husband's going to give him exactly what he wants, I've lost.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because...
Worth taking a break there. I guess I'm really impressed with this psychiatrist, and like the mothers of it got this kind of, I would say she was quite cold initially, but the psychiatrist has done a good job of being direct, but still warm enough to have her engage well and not make her feel attacked or attacked basically. I just think it's so important to avoid shame, right? And that kind of language around, well, I beat him and that's all there is to it. That can be quite provocative, and it's from a different era, right? But it was more commonly socially acceptable at that time for corporal punishment. But even these days, it's really not about promoting shame. Shame can be a useful emotion in some circumstances, but I don't think when I'm doing a psychiatric review of a patient, it's ever been useful to try and elicit shame. And quite the opposite. It's about even if someone does something that is unethical, let's just say, it's about understanding why that's happening and understanding their insight and wish to change. And I think that this doctor's done a really good job. And the second thing she's just talking about now is this dilemma that's so common about both parents having different styles, like a permissive parent that doesn't set boundaries and a kind of more firm parent that does set boundaries. And that can really cause a lot of issues in the family unit. So I do think it's important that both parents share boundary setting equally, so that the child can model that life is about balance and that there's not just a fun parent and a mean parent and then they can split the parents. It's important that both parents engage in boundary setting, and that is a really common thing where there's a more fun parent and a more strict parent. And it's never going to be 50-50, there's no such thing as perfectly 50-50, but you want to try and at least average it out.
If you have an army with a dual command, you've got a very chaotic situation.
Well, that's exactly what I know.
Well, you're introducing a new variable here. In what way do you and your husband split your authority, and therefore this boy feels that he doesn't really have any unified command, and he doesn't have to learn. And
he has too many teachers. He has too many people telling him what to do.
Well, let's see where we can put our finger on the problem between you and your husband in terms of handling this boy. How do you see it?
My husband is European, and he was brought up, again, in a different way, perhaps nearer to my way of being brought up than the way this child is being brought up. And he actually perhaps didn't have any sort of affection at all. He was brought up by governesses, which is even worse, to quite a late stage. And he works very hard, and he's very tired, and really doesn't have too much patience. And he adores the child, obviously. That hasn't anything to do with it. But I think that here everybody's under such a strain that it's very hard to know what to fulfill your commitments and your responsibility towards a child.
Well, you're partly saying the man in this house is your 6-year-old boy. He's the boss. He gets mostly what he wants.
Mostly. That's exactly right.
And that's a very heavy responsibility for a 6-year-old, isn't it?
This is Dr. Taylor Staton, head of Psychiatric.
So that was a pretty profound comment. I hadn't thought about that. When you have an oppositionally defined young child, how that plays into kind of like a unfair responsibility towards that child if you're too permissive towards them. That is interesting. I'm going to have to think a bit more about that and what the experience for a child must be like when they get everything that they want out of fear that a parent can't set boundaries safely. Because a lot of the time, there's a lot of parents who are very scared to set boundaries. They're worried about the child will get traumatized, or that they'll, do something illegal or something. So there's a lot of reasons why parents might struggle to set boundaries. Look, on the topic of boundaries, this is the most important example I can give about it, and we can do it right now. Okay, so this is why boundaries are important. You and I are about to play a game. Okay? It's a really important game, so pay attention. You ready? Okay, you go first. Exactly. You're sitting there and you're saying, wait, what? What are the rules of the game? I go first, what do I do? You don't know. You don't know the rules of the game. Rules are how you learn to play. Play is everything we do. We call it work, we call it love, we call it relationships, we call it hobbies. It's all play, it's all exploration, and it all has rules. And society has rules. What happens when you have no rules? You don't fit into society. You don't grow normally. You develop often behavioral issues, violence. It's paradoxical. You'd think the more freedom a child has, the less violent they would be. But there's a correlation towards the opposite, where if a child has too much freedom, and they can actually develop a higher level of aggression. Let's keep going.
Psychiatry at Montreal Children's Hospital. Facts are one thing, feelings another. The doctor must see the problem as the mother feels it.
I'm trying to get at your feelings.
Interesting. Facts are one thing, feelings are another. There's another common expression in psychodynamics, which is they need an experience, not an explanation. So, often, especially intellectual people, when they're doing therapy, sometimes high IQ can be quite unhelpful. Being a highly intellectual person can be an obstruction to therapy rather than a help, because intellectualizing is a defense mechanism. When you keep everything into the prefrontal cortex, or the temporal lobe, when you keep everything to the areas of the brain that are intellectualizing, it keeps it from the areas of the brain that need to feel. And a lot of the issues we have is unexpressed emotions that are manifesting unconsciously in our day-to-day relationships in unhealthy ways. And so actually feeling and catharsis and accessing these emotions, having the experience, is important. And that's the same with kids, and mums. So it's about the experience, not the explanation, a lot of the time, which means being quiet and sitting in silence can be very helpful.
I'm trying to get at your feelings, and you seem to be hiding them and covering them up. Because I would expect that you would be either very angry with your husband or very sad and hurt that you lost, because you said you don't like to be a loser.
No, I don't.
Well, what happens when you are a loser? Because here is a situation where you are a loser. You've been a loser with your 6-year-old child for a long time. That's what you're telling me.
When I lose, when I say
Your boy's
something...
gone out skating. He was supposed to stay in bed. Your husband let him go. And you lost on that occasion. What is it that you're feeling inside you?
Perhaps sadness?
Sadness more than anger.
Yes.
Which hurts more?
Sadness.
Is your sadness deep down? Is it close to the surface? Have you ever cried?
Regarding that, no. The only time I was very upset was when I was phoned from the school to say that they thought he was much better off not to be there any longer. And it was the way that it was put to me that was... it was just out of the blue. I was just phoned to say that the child was not adjusting and he was disturbing the class, and it was put to me very badly, because it's not a teacher's place to phone, it's the principal's place to phone.
You're putting emphasis on protocol, who should call you. I think you're trying to avoid the catastrophe that your child was expelled from school.
Well, expelled, yes, but usually expel thieves and...
Well, expelled means being
horrible. It wasn't his fault that he was asked to leave, because he wasn't handled correctly.
So this is a really common dilemma, is when a parent and a school have different perspectives on issues with children, and the truth is usually in the middle, is something I often say. But when you have two different opinions, it's a really difficult place. But it's never just fully the school or fully the parents. Okay, so but often there can be that kind of conflict between the two.
He was asked to leave.
He was the eldest in the class at this point, and somehow he wasn't up to the level of the other children. And not intellectually, only because he couldn't cope with himself or cope with anything that was taking place. The children were involved in learning things which required more attentiveness, and a circle where they sat down for a period of time and discussed various things. And Philip realized he couldn't cope with this, so he would ask to go and visit a younger class. And we tried this on occasions.
This kind of story of not being able to sit still, but having the same IQ as peers, it could be a neurodivergence like ADHD or a hyperkinetic disorder. I think ADHD became more popular and aware in the 80s and 90s, and then certainly in the last 10 years it's kind of come to the front of social. It's definitely increased in awareness in the last 10 years. But you can only speculate with these videos, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had ADHD-like symptoms. Well, he does. You know, it's inability to sit still and inability to focus despite having a good IQ and engage in the class. Yeah.
Came to visit various classes, but immediately became attached to one child and showed his affection by beginning to hurt this child. I spoke to Philip's mother and told her that unless she got some help, we couldn't manage to keep Philip at the way he was now. We were only equipped to do a certain amount. We were only trained to a certain level, and we felt that Philip needed more help than we could give him, or that we needed direction in helping Philip or in understanding Philip. Now, the father became quite hostile. He said he couldn't understand that if we were such experts in nursery school, why we couldn't cope with the situation. And we explained that we weren't such experts in, behavior problems, in the sense that Philip was beyond our understanding.
It's nice of you to join us. I thought it would be a good idea if we spend a little time talking about some of the things that I've tried to observe as I've spent a half hour or so with Philippe. And,
Yes?
you want to show your mommy what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about me telling your mommy what we're doing?
No.
Can I tell her
Mommy, we're
too?
going to get those things to bring them over here.
Yes. You got a whole mouthful. But you like to play and eat and talk and breathe and grow all at one time, like a real hungry alligator. And I like this. Yes.
Aren't they cute?
This is a mummy, and a daddy. And they've been playing a game most of the morning. What's the game they've been playing?
Husband and wife.
They've been playing a husband and wife game with a lot of kisses and hugs. Lots of kisses and hugs. So many that you think this mummy and daddy never raised their eyebrows at each other and never had an argument with each other, and mostly at breakfast time.
Oh.
When everybody had a whole lot of bacon for breakfast.
Really? Yep. Oh, nice.
That's one story that Philippe's been telling us, and he's been coming back to that story again and again. The daddy being a very, very amorous, affectionate husband, and with lots of kisses and hugs for mommy. And I think it's Philippe's way of saying that, when you can give a mummy lots of hugs and kisses, then your mummy becomes such a happy mummy. And when you were a little boy like Philippe with lots of hugs and kisses, then you can be not a fighting boy at school, but maybe a happy boy at school. But then, you see, we ran into a bit of trouble. Not really trouble, but game trouble. The alligator became very, very hungry.
Really?
And he wanted to eat up the daddy's head. And I think the alligator was Philippe. And I think Philip became very angry. But he says, I always get what I want. And that's why I fight. And I fight to get what I want, even though I sometimes never really get what I want.
I want that thing now.
You want it right now. And you don't think you can wait longer at all.
Yes, you can, Philippe. I cannot. I don't have
And
to
are you getting to be a hungrier alligator? Or are you getting to be an angrier alligator?
Now get the angry man.
Look, it's pretty interesting, the Philip being the alligator eating his dad's head. I guess one way to interpret that is a kind of jealousy towards mum's affection. Like, he's saying that mum and dad are kissing. He's wanting to be close with mum, and I think what we can kind of speculate is that he doesn't have his emotional intimacy needs met by mum at this point. And then he's getting angry towards dad.
That's the angry alligator. And you ever get to be a sad alligator? A sad little alligator that says, I want something. And I can't, and I want you. And do you ever feel that?
I want something to eat.
Right now. That's right. And I want to get that man right now. And I want to get the apple juice right now. And I want my daddy to kiss my mummy right now. So everybody can be real happy.
Good night.
Well, I ain't going to get to sleep. How would you like to lay down in my arms and fall asleep in my arms? You see how sleepy you are, right? Well, can you cuddle in my arms? Ah. And now you can be that little baby with one tooth. And I wonder, what's better, a big, hungry alligator that wants things, or a little baby with one tooth that can start life all over again and be cozy and comfortable? What do you like best? What would you rather be? A big, angry boy, very hungry, or a little, cozy baby with one tooth?
A big alligator.
A big alligator. And the big alligator, is he happy when he wants all the things he can't get? Is he happy when the teacher's fighting with him?
No.
And when his mommy takes her slipper out? When the daddy shouts? Hmm? 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 I don't think that alligator is such a happy little boy. Do you? I think he's a sad little boy, because he'd like to be a big boy that can go to the park, make bacon for breakfast, make his mommy and daddy happy.
Hold it.
Hold it.
Who made this?
Mm.
You did?
Yes?
For who?
Mm.
Me?
Would you like me to make things for you?
Yeah.
Because you're giving me a real big hug. You had your arm
Now, here's
around me,
something
hugging
for
me
you.
for a long time, and now you made something for me, and that's true. If I can do something nice for you, you can do something nice for me, and the alligator can be put away. And the hungry alligator isn't so important anymore.
He's dead.
He's dead.
It is 7 months later. Philip's mother talks with the psychiatrist who has dealt with the problem, Dr. June Cumberland.
How do you see Philip now?
Completely changed, to say the very least.
Mm-hmm.
And
Could you describe?
improved. Well, he's much more relaxed. He concentrates far more. I think his whole personality has changed entirely.
Well, certainly I have.
So that's a really interesting observation of an example where, a child in this situation could get a diagnosis of ADHD. They're aggressive, impulsive, inattentive, distractible, and absolutely could be started on a chemical solution like stimulant medication. But in this case, what we've seen is, actually, we don't know anything about the medications, but they haven't talked about ADHD once. They've talked about oppositional defiance. They talked about antisocial personality, which is not something you diagnose in children. But the precursor for that is conduct disorder and oppositional defiance. Anyway, the interesting thing is that love, tenderness, affection can resolve symptoms that are ADHD-like. So impulsivity, aggression. And you can imagine why, right? In order to have good focus, you need to have a safe base, right? When you go back to your parents as their safe base, that generates in you a sense of security and safeness, and you start to internalize that. If you do not have a safe base inside of yourself because of, different reasons, then how can you feel safe enough to focus on a single thing? Right? How can you be put in a state of calm where you can focus and learn and engage and listen? You can't. You're always in this like semi-fight and flight response where you're hyperactive, you're scanning, and it's not always a disorder, right? There's evolutionary advantages to having someone in a group who has those traits, and the prevalence of ADHD is like 5%, so 1 in 20, and evolutionarily, we used to move around in groups of 20 or so. So there is some kind of evolutionary thinking that it was good to have someone who's kind of hyper aware and monitoring the environment and that kind of thing. But anywho, it's just a good example to see that you don't always need medications to address these kind of symptoms.
Been aware of the change. He was able to sit here for today for well over half an hour, without really insisting that he do a tremendous amount of things. And he could play in some kind of a constructive way.
I think it's due to his schooling and due to his visits to you. And maybe, in another sense, due to the environment that I've tried to change, knowing when I recognized what had to be done.
In what way have you changed the environment to some extent?
Well, I find that he doesn't like to be screamed at. Not that any child does, but if you speak to him in a normal way and very nicely. He reacts far better. He's hostile if you sort of shout or command him. And
so this isn't common sense back then, right? Like, I'm listening to this and, part of me is like, oh yeah, well, that's common sense. Be tender and loving and kind. But that's because I've had access to YouTube and the plethora of information, medical training and blah, blah, blah. So this isn't obvious, but she's generated this insight, and that is invaluable.
that I found is a tremendous change in him. And of course he's got much older, he understands more. Oh, I just take him aside and say, look here, if you don't do this, Mummy's going to be very angry and he's just going to do it, and that's the end of it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not interrupted, I succeed.
If Daddy doesn't stand.
Yes. And he can't go through life wanting everything and getting everything and just smiling and saying, well, I'm going to ask my daddy, he's going to get it for me. Mm-hmm. He has to know there has to be a limit. And I've tried to set a limit, but it's never been kept.
What happens really is that Philippe plays you and Daddy off against each other very often, then, eh? Mm-hmm. But you and your husband haven't been able to come together to try and help by getting together to try and help Philippe.
No.
Has he been aware of the changes in Philippe, or would you say he's much the same?
No, he thinks Philippe's improved tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
He should have come to the review. Sorry, I think we just need to get more dads involved in these kind of situations. But that's really interesting. Like, a child will know how to pit parents against one another because children are experts at that. Yeah, really interesting insights there. I'm going to close the video there, and it's really important to have a dialogue between the parents around parenting and how to do it. And it sounds like for whatever reason they're not able to do it in this circumstance. But anyway, look, thank you for watching the video till now. I know it's been a long one. I really appreciate you guys staying to the end. If you did, leave a comment down below so I know who you guys are. Liking the video and subscribing to the channel is the most helpful thing you can do for me. But other than that, I just wish you all a wonderful day. And if you have any kind of favorite books or other YouTube videos you want me to react to, please comment them down below, because this is something I'm really interested in at this part of my training. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. All right, bye for now.